I've done some videos recently about claims made about gods and how they really mean nothing because they cannot be substantiated objectively. Anyone can claim anything about anything. It only actually matters when those claims can be verified with evidence, logic, or reason, which of course theistic claims cannot be. So I thought I'd spend a little time examining why nobody ought to be impressed with these theistic claims, and in fact, we all ought to be asking, how do you know? The first thing we need to do is define the problem. Virtually all theists suffer from it, whether they be followers of traditional religions with imaginary father figures in the sky, or whether they follow their own gods and goddesses that equally have no objective evidence. All of them seem to think they know what these gods are like and what they want. They will tell you endless stories about what their gods have done, what they think, and what it takes to make them happy. But none of them have any means of showing how they actually came to this knowledge, nor how they verified that it's actually so. And that's a problem. I mean, I could tell you all about the complex machinations going on in the head of my cats, but how the hell would I know? Theists are making these statements as though they're facts, when nothing could be further from the truth. Facts, by definition, must be verifiable. None of these empty claims can be verified in any way, shape, or form. They're just assertions, made blindly, and held to be true, even though they cannot be shown to be. And theists have gotten away with this for far too long. They make claims, nobody doubts or questions these claims, and they get to run down the primrose path, pretending they know what the hell they're talking about. But the fact is, they don't. And they need to be challenged on their absurd claims whenever they come up. I mean, a Christian might claim that God wrote, or at least inspired, the Bible. Well, how do they know that? Where did they get that information? Faith is not a means of testing knowledge. Faith is blind belief. I don't care what you believe, I care about what you claim to know. And how did you come to the conclusion that God actually wrote or inspired the people writing the Bible? Where's your evidence? Don't worry, I'll wait, and wait, and wait, because they've got nothing to present. Oh, but the Bible says that God wrote it, because, yeah, that's impressive. Pardon me while I go write a book that says Bobo the Tree God wrote it. I'm sure you'll believe me. But who is Bobo the Tree God? Well, many years ago, I got sick and tired of theists telling me all about their gods, so I invented a god of my own. I had this big tree out in the backyard, and this was 3 houses ago or so, and I dubbed it Bobo the Tree God. It was the most powerful god ever. Just ask me, and I'll tell you. And unlike all the other gods, I could prove that Bobo was real. There he was, right in my backyard. So for quite a while, I used Bobo as proof against all these other silly theistic claims. It allowed me to reflect all the most ridiculous arguments back at them. Bobo says you're wrong. Bobo told me that your beliefs are crazy. You must worship the great and powerful Bobo or be condemned to eternal perdition in the great mulch pile in the sky. Theists didn't understand why Bobo was such a great tool, but it was every bit as made up as their own gods, and I could use every single apologetic method they did just with my own imaginary god. Unfortunately, Bobo wound up getting blown over in a windstorm, and I had to cut him up with a chainsaw. I considered chopping him up into little pieces and selling the bits as holy relics. I mean, after all, Christians tried that with Jesus' cross. I mean, how much money could I make selling actual pieces of a real god? But I didn't do that because I actually care about honesty. And so, Bobo went the way of all ancient gods into the rubbish pile of history. Anyhow, and I think it's very clear when you start playing with an imaginary god like Bobo, theist claims are just empty, emotional nonsense. When you can insert Bobo into any theistic argument without batting an eye, it shows just how ridiculous the whole thing is. Just ask how a theist knows these things. God wrote the Bible? How do you know? Because ancient people say God wrote the Bible? Well, how did they know? Where did they get their information? How did they test it? Who the hell knows? And that's the thing, they really don't have anything to say in response. Take the supposed characteristics of their gods. Theists are only too happy to tell you all about their gods, what they're like, what they want, and what they're going to do to you if you don't kiss their asses. Where do they get any of that information? I mean, really, why are we supposed to take these unsupported claims seriously at all? They can't just say some holy book says so, because as we already established, the people who wrote the book have no more demonstrable knowledge than they do. God talked to you? How do you know? How can you be sure that whatever experience you might have had was with this supposed God? Because it told you so? Well, consider this possibility. Maybe what you had an experience with, if you had an experience with anything, was actually the devil of another pantheon sent to lead you astray from the one true deity. And it worked! How would you know the difference? How could you test to see what the actual truth is? You can't. And as I said, that assumes that you actually had any kind of experience to begin with. In fact, most of the religious experiences that I've seen theists claim didn't even have a God involved. They just assert that God did it. Well, how do you know? What God? Conveniently, it's almost always the God that they're already predisposed to believe in. And how do you know it's not another God? Why are they never even willing to entertain that possibility? Or maybe it was no God at all and their brains were just malfunctioning. And that seems like a much more likely answer. We know that there are a lot of quirks in the human brain that leave us misidentifying experiences. So why wasn't your religious experience just a case of your brain going haywire? Because it doesn't make you feel good, that's why. And feeling good is what it's really all about. That's why all of this fails. Because believers don't care if what they believe is actually true. They don't care if they have any rational reasons to think as they do. It makes them feel good. Everything else is irrelevant. But it's not. Reality, objective, demonstrable reality is not irrelevant. It matters, except where emotion gets in the way and clouds the issue. So how do we know that theists are insane? Well, just try this thought experiment. Claim that you believe in Santa Claus. You just know Santa's real. And to prove it, use every single one of the theistic arguments substituting Santa for God. Santa must be real. There are books out there that say so. And where do presents come from if not Santa Claus? And hey, maybe the ghost of Christmas future came to see you one night and told you all about Santa. I mean, if Christians can mix mythologies, why can't we? So is a Christian going to listen to you and believe in Santa Claus? No, they're going to tell you that you're crazy because you are, just like they are. There's no reason to believe in Santa Claus, just like there's no reason to believe in gods. Neither story has been rationally justified. None of the claims made about either character can be objectively supported. It's just wishful thinking, and wishful thinking, no matter how good it might make you feel, is a piss-poor reason to believe in anything. You ought to be better than that, and if you're not, that's a problem. Maybe you ought to pray to Bobo about that and hope he grants you some wisdom. Can't be any worse than what you're praying to now.